architecture, whatever I say, it is not going to do any justice with what you are going to see over there. Nowadays, the kids, my next generation, they use the word awesome so frequently. Everything is awesome, you know. Oh, awesome. So the word awesome actually has lost its meaning. Now what you are going to see, in my opinion, yeah, they say cool, cool. But now what you are going to see, in my opinion, this is awesome. And usually I don't use the word awesome unless and until I really feel strongly about it. And this is something that is really awesome. It is a step well. Lots of steps are leading towards the well, which is built on the main aquifer, on the main water table. Since in Rajasthan, rainfall was never enough or never a lot. So the main water table never dries up. So the idea is that even in the extreme drought condition, this well does not dry. This still has water in the well. In the olden days, since it was on the water table, there was inlet and the outlet of the water in the well, and both the inlet and the outlet were properly maintained, and hygiene and sanitation, and it was actually functioning in use. There were no hand pumps or underground or the pipe water supplied by the government back then. So that was the only source of water. So it had to be maintained properly. Nowadays, government has installed those hand pumps on the wells and all, and the pipe supply. So this is totally neglected. So you may find some algae into the water because it is not functioning. Nobody is taking water from there. But something from 8th century AD, 1300 years ago, something was built by a local Maharaja to facilitate the local people in this area. That is mind-blowing. So we are just going to have a look at that, maybe 15 to 20 minutes, and then we are off to our stop where we'll have washrooms and lunch on our own, which will...
Video camera?
Oh, no video camera? Okay, I'm sorry.
Hinduism is not the oldest name for this religion. Hinduism is the name that goes back to just 1500 years or so. It was, the name Hinduism is because when ancient Persians were coming across river Indus, they would say the name river, and the name of, Hindi name of river Indus is Sindhu, S-I-N-D-H-U. And the Persians could not pronounce naturally the letter S. As in Spanish, they don't pronounce H. Like if there is something with an H letter, in Spanish they don't pronounce that. Like for example, since we study British English in our school, we say H-E-R-B-A-L as herbal. But since in America you are more influenced by the Spanish population coming from South America, you say herbal. You don't say herbal. We say herbal because we study British English. So in Spanish, H is not pronounced. Similarly, in ancient Persian, S is not pronounced. So instead of river Sindhu, they said river Hindu. And for them, river Hindu was the boundary. Now we just entered into Uttar Pradesh with that beautiful archway. Another one is over here. So the river Hindu, they said the land across river Hindu is called Hindustan, because Stan is all land. And people who live there are Hindus. And the belief and the ism that they practice is called Hinduism. That is how the name Hinduism has been arrived at. It is not a very old name. Otherwise, the religion goes back to Stone Ages, at least from 10,000 BC, that we are practicing in this part of the world here. And the original name of this religion, what we know in Sanskrit, is Sanatan Dharma. S-A-N-A-T-A-N. Sanatan means eternal, no beginning, no end. And Dharma, D-H-A-R-M-A, Dharma means religion. So Sanatan Dharma meaning eternal religion, no beginning, no end. People in Stone Ages, we have some cave paintings that we have discovered in central part of India, in the state of Madhya Pradesh. In those cave paintings, there are depictions of the practices, religious practices that people did, and they are from in 9,000 or 8,000 BC, and those are depicting towards nature worship, like worshipping fire, air, sky, water, earth, all these things. Now, why did they worship nature? Since they were afraid of nature. Religion started due to fear in this part of the world. Because people were afraid when nature was in its furious element, like flash floods, storm, forest fire, earthquake, volcanoes, storm and all that. So whenever these things were happening, people were very scared of that. So when they were scared, they started to make offerings. It's just like bribing. So corruption in India started way back in BCs. So even now when we want to get our on snake as a negative element, we worship snakes. Why? Because people were afraid of snake, as simple as that. People were having snake bites and they were afraid of snake. So snake was made as a deity. And people started offering things to snake and asking them that, okay, don't bite me, be happy. So we have a festival in India called Nag Panchami. In the festival of Nag Panchami, people offer milk to the snakes. And believe it or not, on national television and news channels, nowadays it is there, you can see it. The snakes come out from I don't know where, burrows and holes and wherever, and they drink all that milk. How do they know that human beings are going to offer them milk on that day? All over the country, especially in villages and countrysides. So there is some kind of a cycle that even they have, and they have also adopted it, that maybe after this many days or weeks, the people or these people who are living all around, they are going to give us things to drink and to, eat. So they come from their holes and burrows and they drink those milk in that festival called Nag Panchami. So these things are worshipped in Hinduism, and whatever people were afraid of, they started worshipping them. They started making them as deities. This continued for a long time until the advent of civilization. Human civilization in India came somewhere around 4500 BC in a very basic form. So when the civilization started, at that time, people started to, of course, these beliefs which were very loosely knit, they started to take some kind of a concrete shape. And in that concrete shape, it was agreed upon. Again, the main difference between Hinduism and the other religions of the world is Hinduism is not institutionalized. It is very personalized. That is the major difference and the basic difference. Hinduism is a way of life. It is not a religion. People in India are more spiritual than religious. If I'm able to explain myself by all these different statements, that's what I'm going. These are the major differences between Hinduism and the other religions of the world. There is no the way to be a Hindu. Somebody could be a Hindu in his own way or her own way. There's no the proper way to be a Hindu. One can visit temples every day, morning and evening, and one can visit temple maybe once a week, once in a month, once in a year, or never at all. Still, that person never visiting temple could be a very good Hindu in comparison to the one who is visiting temple 2 times a day. It is basically how you are living your life every day that makes you a good Hindu and a bad Hindu. And every Hindu home has a small altar. Okay, what you see on the hills on your right hand side, those are the monuments of Fatehpur Sikri, and they are also nicknamed as Ghost City, the abandoned city or the ghost city of Mughals. The same king who made the Red Fort in Agra, the same king made this place called Fatehpur Sikri, built on almost same model, same style. So what we are going to see tomorrow, the Red Fort, it is almost identical to this, but this is situated almost 1 hour away from Agra. So that is the reason it has its own identity and was completely abandoned after 15 years of people living over here. They lived here from 1571 to 1585, and then they completely abandoned. They went back to Agra because it was not very easy to live away from Agra, and they started to live here because of a blessing of a Sufi saint. That Sufi saint wanted Akbar, third Mughal king, to live over here with his wife. Only then he would be blessed with a very good son, which he was. He was blessed with a son when he began to live over here. So that is why, as a gratitude, he continued to live here. But then he had to move back because it was not very easy to live here. Everything was back in Agra. So it was away from Agra, so they moved back. So anyways, there's no the way to be a Hindu. Every Hindu home has a small altar, a small shrine, where people practice in their own way, as per their own faith. And we don't have to visit temple to be religious, to be Hindu. If I'm bowing in front of my own temple every day, I am equally good a Hindu in comparison to somebody who is visiting a temple every day. Like in this festival, which we are having right now, I'm just following these dietary restrictions, and I do some of my worshippings and prayers and mantras in the morning before I start my day. That is good enough for me. I have seen some people during this festival of 10 days, Dashera, they are praying for 3 to 4 hours in the day, constantly. And I consider my prayer is to do my job well, is to do what I am doing well, and that makes me a good Hindu. If I neglect my profession, my job, what I am supposed to do, and then I try to be a religious person, that does not help. That does not help. So we have our own definitions that we can hang on to. So how did this religion evolve? When civilization started to take its shape, then it was realized and it was understood by the people that there is one supernatural entity, one the God. So even Hinduism, at the bottom, at the foundation of all of it, is monotheistic, monotheism, one God. There's one God, and that one God is represented in all these natural entities. So sometimes people were happy, were satisfied with this explanation, but after some time they wanted to have more explanation because it was so vague. Just one God, nameless, sexless, shapeless, formless, nothing. Very vague. So what do we have? Then, since there was people were wanting to know as to what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it appears like, what it feels like, they wanted to have any kind of perceptible help. So for that perceptible help, we don't know from where, but somebody must have come up with this answer. Somebody intellectual, somebody very respectable amongst the people, or group of the people must have come up with this answer that the supernatural entity, which is very vague so far, is going to be first and foremost depicted with the help of a holy word, a holy sound called Om. And that is what is the only help. We can only hear it. So Om was the first vibratory aspect of that unknown entity. And Om was not spelled as OM, it was spelled as AUM, because AUM stands for three different Sanskrit words. It is an abbreviation, it is an acronym of three different Sanskrit words. A stands for Adi, A-A-D-I, and Adi means beginning. U stands for Udi. Udi means to maintain, to sustain, to live, to continue. And Ma, M stands for Miti, M-I-T-I, Miti. Miti is the end. So everything has a beginning, a life cycle, and as an end and the end. So basically, Om was the whole, the completeness, the totality. So that is what people started to worship. That is what that almighty, that entity was, the whole, the completeness, the totality, everything all in one. Beginning, the cycle, and the end. So for some time people took this explanation, Om, and were okay. But again, they wanted to elaborate it. And some people must have done the elaboration that Adi, Udi, and Miti, now these three different aspects would be represented by three different gods. Brahma, B-R-A-H-M-A. Brahma was the god, was made the god who was in charge for the creation, beginning. So Brahma is creator. Vishnu, V-I-S-H-N-U. Vishnu is the god to maintain, to sustain while we are alive, while we have a life cycle. If we have any issues, we worship Lord Vishnu. So he was the god in charge for the aspect of Udi, out of Om. A was Adi, Brahma. U was Udi, represented by Vishnu, and Miti, M, was represented by Lord Shiva, the end. Because end is not the end in Hinduism. That leads to another beginning, a new beginning. So Shiva is not considered as a negative. Otherwise, if you look at somebody as a destroyer, as something that ends, that does not have a good implication. But in Hinduism, it is not the end, it leads towards a new beginning. So Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva became the first trinity, or the first three important gods of Hinduism, those who came out of Om, A-U-M. And again, because people lived in society, they had family life, they had husband and wife and cousins and relatives, so they started to make stories. These are the things that led to myths and legends. Myths and legends have got no base, have got no foundation, factual foundation anywhere in the world. So then myths and legends started to be made that all these gods, Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva, how can they live in isolation all by themselves? So they were made to have their spouses. They were made to have their consorts. Brahma's consort is Saraswati. Saraswati is in charge for education, wisdom, learning. So somebody is a student, they would worship goddess Saraswati. Vishnu's wife is Lakshmi, L-A-K-S-H-M-I. Lakshmi is goddess of wealth, money, prosperity. Shiva's wife, Parvati, goddess of energy. So all these different, now I'll give you an example why we have these different gods and goddesses looking after different aspects of life. Say for example, take the example of Harvard University. Okay, Harvard University is headed by the president of the university, right? He or she, whoever it is the in charge for the whole university. Then Harvard University has several schools. Harvard School of Public Health, Harvard School of Law, Harvard School of Management. So each and every school of Harvard University is headed by the dean of that school, right? The dean of Harvard School of Public Health, dean of Harvard School of Law and Management, and so on and so forth. Then every school, say for example, Harvard School of Public Health has several departments, like Department of Orthopedics, departments of cardiology, departments of neurology. So different departments are headed by their head of the departments. Say for example, I'm a student of Department of Neurology in Harvard University, in Harvard School of Public Health. If I'm having a issue, if I'm not able to understand how do neurotransmitters in brain work, will I go and knock at the door of president of the Harvard University? No. I will be consulting either my professors in neurology or at the most head of the Department of Neurology, right? I wouldn't even be going to the dean of the Harvard School of Public Health. So in that case, that is how Hinduism works. It is a big Harvard University, and Om is the president of the university. And Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, these are the different deans of different schools, okay? And then for different aspects, Parvati, Lakshmi, Saraswati, these are made in charge. Are you all interested in looking at those necklaces? No, because I have to bring them in. They are standing for that. So if you want, then I can bring their stuffs in as bus bazaar.